For a long time, I waited. Again,
Mm,
this was the love of my life.
right.
So I waited.
This is Single as a Mother, powered by CoTripper. I'm your host, Krystin Hargrove, and today we're talking to Liberty White, who's a single mom and founder of Chozen Media. We're going to dish about entrepreneurship and grief. Hope you guys enjoy. I'm super excited to have Liberty White on the show today. She is the founder of Chozen Media, and we are really going to get into motherhood, single motherhood, and talk about things like career and grief. So, welcome, Liberty, to the Single as a Mother series.
Thank you so much, Kristen, for having me. I am so excited about this conversation.
Yes, I'm super excited. So, just to level set, we like to just have our guests talk about their journey in single motherhood. So, would love for you to just take us through your story, your single mom origin story, and kind of where we are today.
Yeah, so I was married and we have a beautiful daughter. And then things kind of got dark and really rough. And for me, I remember just really, as a mom, just wanting to make sure that the environment that any children that I had, that it would be a healthy environment. And at that point in time, it wasn't. And
Yeah,
especially having a daughter, I never wanted her to hear her mom being called certain things or anything like that. So I recognized that, you know what? For the moment, for the time being, I'm going to have to, exit the premises just to make sure, again, for her to have a healthy upbringing. And so that led to separation and ultimately a divorce. So divorce a couple years ago. And but then sometimes we might not realize it, that you need to get out of a situation for it to
yeah.
actually get better. So within the last year or so, it was what it should have been.
Like,
you
why
know
wasn't it like this when we were married?
right,
Yeah,
like, how sway, how.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, he was my best friend, love of my life. So, just the ebbs and flows of life, that it got there, but then it went back on the uptick. And then about 3 months ago, he suddenly passed away.
so sorry to hear
So
that.
not
Yeah,
only like single mother, but like single parent, like full stop.
yeah, yeah. I really want to step back and talk about the journey of separation. So when you were going through kind of rough patches in your marriage, and decided to enter kind of like doing it on your own, what was that like for you? What was that like for your daughter? Can you give us insight on kind of how you just managed that transition?
Yeah, so just in making sure that I like the just us from like the separation and what that time was like being separated and then having my daughter.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that was hard.
yeah,
It was hard. I don't know that, and I think this is part of like the single mom superpower, is that we just figure it out. So
yeah,
you just do it. But I didn't realize how much of like I was in survival mode. I didn't realize that. It's just like I just got to get this done, got to make sure she's okay, make sure she's in and she was at an age where if I'm working, finding somebody to, finding someone to take care of her. And when I say working, if I have to go on site for a shoot or anything like that,
right,
because I'm in production, who's going to watch her, and how much is that going to cost? So thankfully, there were just some folks in the community that were safe. The grandmas around.
yeah,
Thank God for those grandmas out there, that were able to watch it. So it was just a lot of figuring out first, like how to live another day, and
right.
then it got better. So it's like how to live another week, another month, and then getting into the groove of things.
Yeah, the transition. I love having people unpack that question because the transition of going from I was never married, but in a living with my partner relationship to like becoming a single mom, separating from part, is such a hard transition. And
Right.
I just love to lend perspective or have our guests lend perspective on that because for me, it was so like I. It's to the point where I can't even remember how it was possible. I don't even know if that like I'm sure it makes sense to you, but like it's just it's a period that I can't even remember. Like it was that much of a grind to really try to like do all the logistics, have the job, take care of the kids, and really meet some semblance of what I needed for myself. That transition was definitely hard. So at the point that you got divorced, was that going from separation to divorce? The finality of divorce, kind of like how was that for you going from separated to divorced?
Yeah, so the finality of it was more relief.
Mm,
Um, One day, as I process everything because I'm now at another phase, I
yeah.
really do want to like write a book or do something on that because for a long time I waited. Again,
Mm,
this was the love of my life.
right.
So I waited for the change. I waited for, and he might have just thought, so many times he's like, "Are you seeing someone?" No, and the answer would always be no. Like, get that clue.
Right. Like
I'm not
I'm
seeing.
waiting. Don't you get
Right.
it?
And then, as I said, it was the whole like, still can't call me by my name,
Yeah.
and that you will probably be okay staying in this space of just being here. And
Right.
that's not like I still want to have more children. I know that um that family unit in like having a husband, that type of family unit, because there's different types. I
Right.
want that. So if right now this is if I'm still waiting, what does that mean for my quality of life and what I desire and what I hope for? So then I was like, you know what? It's never going to be a right time. You know what? If I could highlight something, there'll
Yeah.
never be a right time. And I recognize that because of waiting for so long. And it's like, okay, well, do I do the papers now or next week, or do I wait until? And then it was because he also had some health challenges, and then I did, and it was relief.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
relief.
Yeah.
It was sad, but it was still relief.
So in the waiting, I want to unpack that a little bit. I guess, did you have any indication, like in that period of waiting, where where you felt like things would change, or you felt like he was making the changes that he needed to make, to kind of, I guess, not end in divorce? Can you walk me through kind of like, without being too pushy into your your personal life, like those things that you needed, that maybe weren't being met, that you felt like maybe they could change eventually, you ended up in divorce, but can you unpack a little bit of that for us?
Yeah, you know what? It wasn't even a lot. It was the temperament. Can we just work on that? Um,
Right.
and that's something that again, where I alluded to, like he had to do the work.
Right.
So it was nothing really more. And I wish I realized that sooner, that
Mm,
this is not about me. This is something that's going on with you, and there's nothing else that I can help necessarily to do to help you get through this. Like, you just have to confront yourself. And thankfully, like, that's something he said to me.
right.
So that, so he had again, he did the work after the
Right.
fact.
Right.
But
Right.
he did do the work.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I asked that question because, of course, my kids have two different dads, and
Mhm.
separation on my side occurred for two very different reasons. The first one being just that I was young, right? I had a
Okay.
baby at 24. And if I'm quite honest with myself, I wasn't ready, right? Like, not to say that my growing up without a dad, because I grew up in a single parent home, was a negative experience for me, but to say that, I think at 25, I didn't have the understanding of what a healthy union looked like, right?
Right.
Like what a relationship period was like supposed to be from a reciprocal standpoint, right? And so that's more so the catalyst for my separations. But my daughter's dad, we faced some really hard challenges around, without, I mean, I'm always sensitive because I mean, he's so active, and that's the
Yeah.
thing when you're a single parent, and whether you're co-parenting, not co-parenting, whether you're grieving, the loss of the other parent. I think like you always want to protect your kids' awareness or possible knowing of experiences that happened, right, or that led to a relationship ending. But I'll say in that situation, it was a similar thing. It was like you have to get a hold of your life. It's not anyone else's fault. And it
Right.
took me a long time to get that acknowledgement that there was even a problem present,
Right.
and for me, it wasn't so much that I was in a holding period of waiting because I knew that relationship needed to end, but it was like I was holding for that more so apology, or it was just like I was still holding on to that anger, that like
Yeah.
all of those things that I experienced as a result of a you problem, like a him problem.
Right.
And so, like it took me a long time to just release that because I never got a like, until I had already healed fully, I never got like a, hey, I have a problem and these are things that I need to work on. It was very much so a projection onto me that I could do anything, right? And
Right.
I knew that that wasn't my work, right, in the situation.
I think you touch on something like really important there with just even how the other parent is viewed in our children's lives, and being very mindful of that, being mindful what's said, being mindful how, yeah, like we can have all of that, in the car with them or on the phone or somewhere
Yeah,
else in another room, but for them, because at the end of the day, and I remember a therapist saying this to me in a different context, but you're still a family.
right,
Like, we're still a family. So the same way that I want to be honored and I want to be respected, I'm going to show that same respect, especially in front of her, so that she doesn't have those memories of like mommy and daddy fighting and or anything like that. So I think that's a great point. I don't, there was no bashing. You can search the web until thy kingdom come. You will not find anything, because one, that's just
right.
not necessarily my character, but I did not want that for her, for us, for our families.
Right, right. And I love that from a therapy perspective because I think it's helpful for healing. Right?
Right,
Now, there are of course situations where that's difficult for somebody to take on, right? And so I in my mind I kind of say there are boundaries to this way of thinking, and I know that, right? Because if my circumstance was a different circumstance, I may not think this way, right? I may not be as protective of my kid's space as I am,
right,
because there's trauma that somebody receives from an experience, right? So, fortunately, in our case, the trauma that I did experience, because it was trauma. I think like we can, we're strong, all these things that they want moms in general, but particularly single moms to be. We don't have a lot of time to process that trauma. Okay, because I went from leaving 2 months after I had a baby, struggling with wanting to leave the entire time I was pregnant. So the
mm,
the trauma was the entire time, right?
right,
Up until the point that I left, and then here I am with a 8-ish-year-old, a newborn in an apartment by myself, still trying to heal from trauma, but they have to go to school, I have to go to work, they have to go to childcare, I have to pay the bills, I have to cook dinner, so I say that to respectfully, recognize people don't who aren't at the point of healing from their trauma,
right.
right? And
That's fair.
so yeah, but I agree that we're a family, and as we all know in our families, okay, it ain't all child.
Right.
It's just things
No,
going on, okay? So I try not to let those experiences that I had ruin or limit or remove his opportunity to be involved. But I love that way of thinking. That feels so. Shout out to therapy
right.
for that. Um, I wanted to take a little break from your parenting story and just talk a little bit about how we met.
Yes.
Um, because we met through a mutual friend, and I want to kind of segue into support and community around this and dig a little bit into what you're doing at Chozen Media. We met through a mutual friend, and we were all single moms building companies and really trying to do good in the world. and we created this single mom founders group where we're all single moms and we're all building companies. And we've created this little micro community. And I'm quite jealous that I'm the only one outside the bubble because you guys are all in Atlanta and I have FOMO all the time.
But when you're
Uh,
here, it's on. It is on.
yeah. Yeah. One thing I will say about community and just like, I never feel, I love you girls. And unfortunately, from a distance a lot. But like you said, when we get together, it's like, it's a real community, you know?
Right.
So talk to me. Yeah, I know you talked about just in parenting. Thank God for that community that you had. Talk to me a little bit about what you're building at Chozen Media and how, you know, the community in Atlanta, because I want to know for myself, like all the wonderful things about just being a part of that ecosystem.
Yeah, so and just to like shout out to the other single mom founders, like yes, that community is special, is priceless. Even the events that we've had for other single moms to like wait, and especially those who are running a business to
Yeah.
there's a unique some unique challenges and things that we go through not only as mothers, single mothers, but then also founders and building, so just having that kind of dialogue that we're able to do. So I run Chosen Media, which we're a content creation agency, which means that we are helping other PR firms. We do training videos, and just overall, a lot of the content that we create is really helping people to tell their story and to connect with their audience and reaching them where they are. And we've been using a lot of AI of lately. That's just all that is helping us to not
You need
only
to tell
create.
me all the tea outside of this interview on the AI because I'm a little lost in the sauce. But
And
that's for
you know what?
another meeting.
Yeah, but that's the whole idea, is because of just the legacy of all the work that we've done to now be able to use this new technology, relatively new, I should say, technology to help people really understand how to make that work for them, workflows, and just being more efficient. So yeah, so that's Chosen Media, and then just like with the single mom founders coming together, what I found like so special with the group, it was just the ability to then even realize some things, because again, we're tunnel vision. That's a great word. We're
Yeah.
tunnel vision because we've got dinner, their lunch, their homework, all of those things. But then the looking at like, what do we need?
Right.
What do we need as women, as single moms, and being able to have those like really authentic conversations, just like this podcast. So really, if you're listening right now, you're getting like even a part of the heartbeat of like single mom founders, to have these
Yeah.
authentic and very real, transparent conversations that are happening already in your head. And it's just, oh wait, you think like that? I'm not crazy.
Right. Right. I am crazy. A lot of times I'm like, okay, you crazy too? Okay, cool.
Right, right.
But yeah, yeah, what you guys are doing in Atlanta, just the ecosystem in general,
Yeah,
maybe just tidbit on that, because it just feels very special down there. It feels much so like a community. Now, not saying that here in DC it's not the same way. Um, it's a different feeling though. Like it really feels truly supportive. It feels like people are championing, high five, and everybody. Even like every day I'm getting sent things from someone in the community or just getting
right,
updates where it's
right.
like, hey, reach out to this person or let me connect you with this person. So talk about how that has been just as a support, like being a founder and a single mom.
Yeah, so you are absolutely correct. There is definitely something special in Atlanta, and it's been cultivating, bubbling for, I'm going to say almost 20 years, because I got here in about 2007, and my founder journey really like 2008-ish. And then I had a full-time job for a bit. And then when I left to like dive right in, that's
Hmm.
really where, for people who are usually underserved, the underserved community really started to get into this like, oh, this tech and startup space. So you've got folks like Joey Womack, you've got Jewel Burke Solomons, who is now with Google, but overall, she was like one of the first people to exit, so,
Yeah.
and just from that, like being on the ground level of that, and in order for you to really get to the next level, to get access, because that's the biggest thing for many of us, is the knowledge in some ways, but then the access to
Yes.
where this money is, or access to the people who have the insights or the connections that can help you really build out your pipeline. So this is where you start seeing a lot of these accelerators pop up.
Yeah.
And that's really how, well, I had already met, Veronica and Tamara in advance, but then we were all a part of the Techstars, JP Morgan's Chase Techstars Accelerator, Founder Catalyst Accelerator. So by them being intentional in creating these accelerators, that's where these relationships really grow. This is where you bond with people. This is where you scratch your head on the different problems you have, and really support. So community has been intentional in many, many ways. So that's what you're seeing. You're seeing that, okay, we don't have the legacy of the valley. So
Right.
what is Georgia? What does Atlanta have? And, Atlanta has community. Atlanta has relationships, as Veronica says so often.
Yeah. I love that. And so, like, here, I would say there are amazing programs, right? Because again, we're just segueing on just being a single mom founder. So,
Yeah.
like, I was lucky enough to get funding through a program here when all the programs were bubbling up for COVID relief in
Mhm.
the pandemic, which was a time for parents in general, but yeah, for single
Right.
parents, Lord have mercy. Um, and so we were fortunate enough to receive a grant through a program, and I had the funds. So when you said like access to like relationships, like that for me as a founder is like, I won't say more important as money, but can be more impactful than money, And I feel like the relationships that exist in Atlanta are special and unique in the way that they want to add value to founders. And here it was kind of a unique experience where I got the funding, but I didn't necessarily have any because of the program that I got it from. And I'm grateful, extremely grateful, not saying that, but I was like, oh gosh, like, what do I do? Like I
Right.
needed that mentorship. I needed that. And I ended up doing pretty well just because I'm savvy and scrappy. And if single motherhood has taught me anything, is how to
Anything. Right.
persevere and figure some stuff out. Okay.
Right.
So I did that. But every time I go down there, I can just feel the magic of the relationship. So hopefully I'll get to spend some more time, um, in Atlanta with you guys. But kind of talk to me about so we're going to go into, you lost your ex-husband. And I think it's really important to acknowledge in single motherhood the different types of journeys that lead you, that lend to your experience. So yes, you're a single mom, but as you mentioned that you guys were finally getting to a place where like things were getting better, and then his tragic death. Talk to me about like where it's not even far removed, right? So just talk to me about like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Like, genuinely, when I heard the news when I came down from Veronica, I was like, we just have to make sure she has an amazing time. You know what I mean? Like, we have to
Don't make
make
me
sure
cry. Don't make
she
me
has
cry.
an amazing time, because I just, sometimes you just want to hug somebody, but,
Right.
I just wanted to give you an experience that brought joy, but I knew that that's what I could give. You know what I mean? So talk to me a
Yeah.
little bit about how you're doing, just dealing with it.
Yeah, and it was everything. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much for that. And just even you saying that when it happened, and some of the words started, because I had no words.
Yeah.
I still am slowly like a friend of like 30 plus years. We actually just spoke last night just because, thankfully being inundated with people checking in and things like that is helpful. But if I don't have the words to say, or I don't have the
Yeah.
capacity at that time, I just said, you're just not gonna hear from me. And she's like, she completely understands. So for me, it's still day by day.
Yeah.
One of the things that I share, because I remember someone had said something to me. I posted after, maybe like a week after he passed, going through photos, and posted like some old photos of us together. And somebody's like, well, why are you posting photos with you and him together? Because you were divorced.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he was still in the house every day, like calling, like FaceTiming. If something happens, we're talking about school together. Like, he might not have been like physically, but that FaceTime text calling game, like, so he was a part of our world. every single day. So
Right.
that the absence of that was really rough. I remember shortly after we had gone to the pool with some friends, and so my daughter's in the pool splashing around. I take a picture and I went to text him,
Yeah.
and that hit so hard.
Mm.
And I think I probably was even like teary eyed a little bit because it's like, who am I going to text these pictures to now? And you
Yeah.
know me, like I'm in this production world, so like I'm
Right.
always taking taking pictures and
Capturing and
photos.
yeah. Yeah.
So who's gonna get that now? I haven't done it yet, but in that moment of just like letting myself feel that, I was like, you know
Yeah.
what? I need to start some kind of email and still do that and still write to him so that when she gets older, she can have that and
Yeah.
see, the love and the care that was still, still there and sharing all of those memories. So that's just one of the things that I've been thinking about. But it's day by day.
Yeah. And I think that's so special. And you said something like this is where it becomes, I don't know, I become triggered. I'll say that word. Because just because you're no longer in a romantic relationship with the father or parent, the other parent, doesn't mean they're not involved in your kids' lives. And I think the biggest stigma that bothers me so much about saying I'm a single mom is the immediate equating that to an absent dad,
Yeah,
and that's just not everybody's story. That's just not, that shouldn't be what you think about,
right.
when somebody explains things like that. But I think society is just so kind of insensitive towards this demographic of women, and so biased towards this demographic of women. And it's challenging. So I hate that somebody asks you that, because it's just like, wow, like if they're aware of all you're going through, and then to say that, it's very, I
Yeah.
don't even, it's just people.
You learn quickly in the grief journey that people say some stupid stuff and
Mm,
it's not even intentional. At times it's just them trying to figure out what to say to you, them trying to figure like they may mean well,
yeah.
but sometimes just be quiet.
Yeah.
I'm just that's probably going to be the harshest thing you hear me say, say on this. Just shut
Like,
it up.
shut
Just shut it up.
your shut your mouth, okay?
Yeah.
But yeah. And again, I just want to be, I just want to say to you, every day I'm praying for you. I'm praying for you and your daughter. I'm praying for healing, processing, and just, take your time. Like,
Yeah.
it's no way I could, like, sometimes you just don't have words, but like, I pray for you. I know that you guys are going to be fine and be okay. And I would love for you to pursue a book. I would love for you to pursue, because I think that's another way of healing. As
Yeah.
founders, we build.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I think when you're entrepreneurial, and people ask me all the time, like, how do you do all these things? You're a single mom, you're doing this, you're doing that. How are you doing all these things? And I'm just like, some people, just have a propensity to build. And I think my being a single mom gave me even more fuel to the fire, right? To
Right.
like, I know that things are possible. And I know that now I have a slew of circumstances in my life that makes it more challenging, but that also gives me greater problems to solve. Like your story, I just feel like will touch so many people, because the one thing when I started this community that I truly didn't even recognize until I built the community were people who had lost other parents, right? Because sometimes
Wow.
in your experience, I'm also conditioned by the way society has told our story. And that's
Right.
a part of this podcast now, or this series now, for us to tell our own stories. But when the widows came into the chat, into CoTripper, I was really humbled, and I was really like, just made more empathetic to people's experiences, and the roads that people take to get to a particular place. Um, it just made me so much more aware and grateful that I even created this space further than what I even intended it to be. So to have you, who is in this circle, in this community that I reside in, go through something like this, it just makes me grateful that I've already started to train myself on that empathy, like in the sphere of single motherhood.
Yeah, and it's so, so needed because, here's this other club now that I've joined unknowingly. I didn't do the initiation or anything like, but now here we are.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I even found, and I know that this space does it as well, is the reminder of the self care that needs to take place. Because and it's funny, sometimes I laugh because he was very much like, you work too much, or you're always on the move, and he would be the one to want me to slow down, and I'm like,
Mhm.
in death he's still making sure that I take care of myself, in the sense of, like, when he had passed and I had to break the news to our daughter, and I just took a day or two and I just stayed in bed and bawled my
Yeah.
eyes out. And I sat there, and this is in contrast to before what I said. As single moms, we're putting out fires and we're like, go, go, go. And I was like, if I don't stop, I won't be able to go. And
Yeah.
I just let that all out, and then it was like, snot nose and everything, "Okay, let's put this cape back on," and,
Right.
then go, but still giving myself the grace to, like, if tears start coming, let those tears flow. And it was also, I wanted to make sure my daughter saw that, like, she
Right.
saw that it's okay, because people, again, in just trying to be kind or just trying to, like, say something to support you, they're like, toughen up, and I would pull her aside. I said, "No, if you want to cry, you sit there and you cry, okay?"
Right.
Because I know what that could impact, that kind of impact that it would have on her life later on. And we're not doing that. We need saving on some of these therapy bills.
Okay. Listen, I'm trying to reduce the trauma. Reduce. Yeah. No, and that's a great reminder for any kind of pain or journey that causes grief, that is causing grief in your life, because for a long time as a single mom, I didn't want to show that side to my kids. I always say now I'm at a place where I really believe my kids are not growing up lacking anything. You know what I'm saying? And that's just what I was messaged. So I worked very hard in that regard,
Right,
right? But I didn't work, you know, so hard to make sure that I wasn't lacking the tools and the things that I needed as a parent. And so taking care of myself and just being vulnerable are important in parenting, and
right,
I didn't understand that until I started to allow myself to be vulnerable and allow myself to talk to my kids about, like, why I'm crying or why I'm upset or what I feel, right? And so I love that you're also instilling, those values to her in dealing with grief. It's like, hey, it's okay to cry. It's okay to yell sometimes. It's okay
right,
to just let out whatever emotion that you need to really process and get through something, especially for my son, like, I think just on the vein of being expressive, like, in reducing the future therapy bills.
right,
I'm just like, if you have to cry, if this doesn't make you feel good, like, do these things.
right,
Like, if you're scared to talk, I want to challenge you to talk. I want to challenge you to communicate, because it helps people deal for the things in life that happen to you that you couldn't prepare for,
right,
right? These sudden things that are going to happen, the scale of how they're going to happen may differ, but things that you don't expect that don't make you feel good are going to happen to you, like, and how do you process them? And we as parents, set the groundwork for how to do that, so I love that you took that moment for you and did what you needed to do for you. So let's talk a little bit about kind of now, um in terms of your life and your career. Like, what are your goals, or what are your goals and challenges for kind of continuing to build through all you're experiencing? What would you say are, like, the key important things that you need today to keep kind of forging your mission forward with Chosen Media, and just, like, you pushing you to, like, still live your best life during, such a unfortunate time, or not unfortunate, but like I don't even know how to
Tra
say it.
traumatic, yeah,
Okay.
traumatic is
Yeah.
good. We
Yeah.
could roll we could roll with
Yeah.
traumatic.
Again, I'm over here trying to like make sure I don't say anything and sound like the people I'm talking about,
Right,
you know?
right. Well, you know what? It's taking like I can't over overstate the taking one day at a time, and
Yeah.
I'm doing even more with what doesn't serve me. Like death will do that to you.
Mm,
Like, what do I already started this year is like, what do I need to stop doing? Because when you're trying to scale and scale meaning like you're here and you're trying to push through and get to that next, whether that next is like team wise in growth or whether it's a revenue growth goal. Like there's just certain things that you did at the startup level that can't go into the next. So I was already of that mindset. But when that death happened, I was like,
right.
"Oh, no, that really changed looking at, relationships, how I spend my time." We
Yeah.
already do that as single moms, but it was just even more refined because now I have to leave space for the unknown. And what I mean by unknown is like, well, if she has a meltdown or, thinking back to when our kids were really young where you couldn't control when they
Right.
would have those moments. So now it's doing that again, but it's like her and me. So like
Right.
when my energy is sapped. So there is still a lot of self care in that, but then also knowing that okay, what communities do I now need? Are the communities that I was a part of, do they still, serve me? As I said, just being in this AI, like what's happening AI. So I'm a part of a community called Office Hours, and it's been like almost coming up to 3 years of just every single day they go live answering questions around technology. And I took a break. I took a break for a few months to just like pause and woosah. And now it's like, okay, since we've got product launches, the new year's coming out
Yeah.
there, so making sure that I'm present. What kind of skill sets do I need to sharpen a little bit more? Because again, that idea of scaling and making sure that I represent not only my business but as women in tech as
Right.
well. So hopefully that kind of shows like just where I'm looking at of like my self development,
Yeah.
and then also just those around me like team wise. And I would also say, what, organization has
Mm,
been really key. Like how are the systems, and looking at the systems and potentially like, okay, that system's not serving us anymore.
right. Right. And it's interesting. When I when I became an entrepreneur, I was so green. I was so um I wouldn't say I was I'm more just, I don't even know the words. Like, it is a draining, very labor intensive choice.
Yes.
And I worked in corporate most of my career. And then in 2018, I separated from the company I was at. And I decided, like, okay, I had always dabbled in entrepreneurship, but like I decided to like become a founder, right? Like I had been working at a startup, and in my mind, I was like, oh, these guys are doing it. Like they're my age. Like,
Right.
what's the difference? I was so unaware of the systematic barriers, I would say, to like, it's one thing to have like a lifestyle business. I'm not sure that I wouldn't be okay with that at this at this point, just
Right.
being real, right? Where you're just making a good amount of money and paying yourself. Than a startup, right? And I think some people don't really understand the difference between like being an entrepreneur and having a startup, right? The intention is to have a big scalable company, so I think I underestimated what that would be like. What I thought, I was confident. I was like, I'm gonna be able to do this. There's not many things in my life that I put my mind to that I can't
Like,
do,
right.
right? But I would say like becoming a founder really humbled me, and I'm to the point now where the things that you're saying are resonating with me, because the way it's always been done is not the way I'm going to do it. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? And I think I was in the hamster wheel of trying to do it the way it's always been done, right? I need to do it this, and then I need to go to this step, and then this is the next step, And when I realized, just really because my kids were like, I had two school age kids, I had a kind of transition point in my life where now I'm like, before I could take my daughter anywhere, it's like she's just going where I go,
Right.
But now to have like two kids in school, having to be fully invested in both of their success, buying a house, this is I'm a first time home buyer last year. Um, really, it was a lot. We could talk. That needs a whole episode on
By
home
itself, right?
buying because it was very hard to do by myself. Um, but but coming to a place now where like I'm really evaluating, the communities, like you said, the communities I'm in. Like I'm not going to be able to do it the same way. My experience as a single mom automatically disqualifies me if I had to say it. I'm sorry. Like that's my perspective. Like it automatically disqualifies me because I have a certain way that I'm going to raise my family and it has to fit, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of the systems currently do not fit in my opinion, the life that I'm building. So it's hard. It's like having to accept. We've talked about this. Like I took contract work, right? It was like founders, they just work full time in the business, and I'm like, as a single mom trying to build a company, you should not be limited whether you could build a scalable company, whether you could lead a startup. Like your parental status should not impact your capability, but it does. Your lifestyle and the things that you go through does, right? And I felt like it just wasn't going to work. So I contracted and I started to really use strategic thinking to like say, okay, here's how it's been done. How do I get to that same end result knowing that I can't do it that way? So I began kind of like using relationships and putting the pieces together on how to do that. But it's freaking hard,
It
like and
it
it's
really is.
slower. Like so in that reflection that you're doing on kind of like what needs to stay, what needs to go, has that made things easier, or is it your perspective like you're on a road to trying to make your journey easier to manage like all the moving parts of your life?
Yeah, you really said you hit the nail on the head with the latter part of like I literally a couple days ago spoke to a couple advisors and I said, okay, listen, I finally have come to terms like I am in transition
Right.
from what most people know of me. And if I'm really going to have this stake in the ground and like it'll always be content, it'll always be media, but really this technology side of things. And you've branding is not about what you say you are, it's about what people say you are. And
Mm.
so really sitting down with that and like having to pause, having to but pause, but then money still money still needs to come,
Child, this money will take you out.
it
Oh
still
my
needs to
God.
come through the door. So I love that you said too the contracting idea of things because really, if you really want to break it down, it's like that contract is your VC.
Exactly.
That's your investor into your company, and that's what we do as founders. Is like there's a problem, if there's a cash flow problem, here's how we figure it out. And just going back to the idea of like the communities that I recognize that now the conversations that I have with people are also different. So, yeah, there's this level of whether it be startup or, a little above that, but now I really want to talk to other people who have had to pivot or
Yeah.
people who have been in transition because their stories are going to be much different than those who grew scale and like it all worked out. No, 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 I need to talk to the people who had bumps in the road, who it took longer because it always takes longer than you think.
Right.
So having those conversations with those types of people, and then also making sure that, okay, well, is it again, that the idea of like, is this the community? Am I spending my time wisely, here, and also spending as social as I am, really working on my network.
Yeah. Yeah. And I found network to be everything. Everything.
Everything.
And I think people think that uh a network has to be something like I don't want to say already in, or like have to have someone connect you to, or you have to have access to it. I have literally cold DM people on LinkedIn, sent emails, hunted down email address. I'm like, somebody is going to respond, to me. And you can build it. You know what I mean? Like, don't wait for somebody to intro you. Don't wait for somebody, like really figure out, who do I want to talk to? What do I want to talk to them about? Who are those people that I want to talk to? Right. Because a lot of times you're trying to like reverse engineer something,
Right.
and then it's like, okay, these 5 people work at ABC or whatever it is. I'm going to just email all 5 people or whatever. So I think when you're trying to, or when you're pursuing entrepreneurship, especially as a single mom, like, single motherhood has taught you so many skills that you need to tap into. Like, when we have a problem at home, we activate.
Yes,
Ain't
we do.
nobody else here to activate. You know what I'm saying? So I think really just applying all of the things that we already are doing as single moms. Like, and I do think that those skills are unique to single moms, because if someone else is there, you may have to activate, but you may not. You know what I mean? But like us, we have a really, if problem comes up, we solve it. Or at least good enough. You know what I mean? We get it done, whatever needs to get done, or figure it out. So I think those are extremely transferable to entrepreneurship if you decide to own them, and make them, like, just like you do in your life, make it happen. And it may not be the way somebody else did it or look the way somebody else did it, but like, just focus on that end result. Like, am I getting myself, my business, my corporate career, whatever it is, from point A to B? Because I'm at
Right.
A and you know what I mean? I need to be at B. We only focus on that. So
That whole
I,
get it done idea of
yeah,
things, like, just that there is, if something happens at home, like, and it's, you don't have someone else to fall back on. Like, one of those, the big things for me was, was childcare, and
yeah,
our ability to figure that out, to build the relationships, find the babysitters, find the people in the community who could then, like, that same mentality is what then that transferring to your business. It's someone in your, your faith community, and just looking for those people, being open to that as well, because it might not, like, we have this, our ability to switch the knob of, like, okay, the vision was like, I really wanted this kind of person, but you know what, it seems to be that I have more access to this, and then, like, switch, and then,
right.
moving in that vein.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. And I think it's important, especially for single moms in particular, who want to pursue entrepreneurship, or becoming a founder, whatever that your choice in entrepreneurship is. Like, just really lean into those skills that you already have, right? And just don't be afraid. Like, don't be afraid of rejection. Don't be afraid of, like, being, like, failing. I mean, I failed so many times. I can't even tell
Ma'am,
you. I'm just a failure at this point.
I hear that. I had a interview last month that I could say that was like, it was really bad. It was really bad. And, to be able to come back from that, like, there's just so many ways, and even the from a parenting standpoint, there's like, oh, you know what, I forgot their lunch, and it might seem like a little thing, but it's like, no, we're constantly just
Yeah.
keep moving after, something that doesn't go right,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. No, I love
failing
that.
forward.
It's true. It's a thing. And like, fast as many times as you can. I'm racing to it, because then that helps me get to where I need to be. And then God will throw in some stuff just to make sure you still jiggy with it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, he'll throw in a curveball. Life will life. All the things will happen. But I think, like, just staying grounded in some of the things that you mentioned today, like taking care of yourself, right? Doing what you need to do, right? Finding the right communities, reprioritizing, you know what I mean? All these, organization, like, I just think those things are critically important to the experience of single moms, period. Like, and, it's, it's been like wonderful. I was nervous to ask you to talk about this. Your story at this time, right? But I think it's helped people today. I think that you're brave and wonderful, and I'm here to
Thank you.
support you always, no matter how much time has passed by, because I think, like, that's the value of community, right? I really
Agree.
wanted to have you on, and to talk about this for you, and for the benefit of the people, the story that you are supposed to tell, like, to other moms.
to you had asked me earlier, like, what are the things that I'm doing now at like this point of my development, and it really is a lot of self development. I did this assessment. It's called the DISC assessment. It's one of those
Mhm.
like personality, like how you think and how you process information. And I forgot what all the letters were, but I remember like I is like influence. And I think S was like stability, like you're really a systems type of person. And I scored like 99% on that I.
Wow.
And I remember speaking to the coach who had released it, and he was giving feedback, and he said like your superpower is showing up and talking to people. People want to hear what you have to say. So if you don't show up, you're doing a disservice to them. And when I
Yeah.
tell you that hit me like right here,
Yeah.
that changed my perspective on like from a business for me business wise, because this is a safe space and all this authenticity, it was like I was hiding behind the producers, some of those
Yeah.
things, because I didn't think that, because again, I spot talent really really well. But if my superpower is showing up and sharing,
Yeah.
much like I get a chance to do here, then that is the next part of my evolution, the thing that I've been trying to figure out, like what's that switch. Well, that switch is turning
Yeah.
myself on.
Right. Right. And I think sometimes it's our fears or our insecurities even, like just to jump out there and do it.
Yeah.
And not even, and sometimes you don't even have that awareness around like this is the thing that makes me tick. But the quicker we get jump and dive in and allow ourselves to be feel insecure about it. Like, I don't know. Like they made a whole show off insecure. Like that's a regular normal
Right.
feeling. you know? Um you'll be surprised what you figure out. So I love that now, and I feel like that will elevate what your mission is at Chosen Media. Like now you are really leaning into the story of who you are, which is
Yes.
going to impact the stories that you tell, the platform that you create, the way it feels to other people. Does it feel authentic? When you're coming from that place, it spews into your business. Like I'm constantly, I used to try to create a divider and say, I came from blogging, in the
Okay.
early
Yeah.
2010s or whatever. And I just had such a displeasing experience
Mm.
with that environment. And I'm very sensitive to environment stemming from my upbringing. Like I want to get out. When the environment is not serving me, I am going. And people are like, you're always doing different things, and I'm like, no, it's just, I'm just trying to find my place where I thrive, the environment that fills me. And so I'm not afraid to do something else if it's not filling me up, So, and I try to apply the same thing to CoTripper. Like I know that there isn't enough license given to single moms to really own their parenting experience and be proud of it. In fact, a lot of the reverse is pushed to us that we shouldn't even, we should be more so ashamed or like it doesn't make you feel good, like labeling yourself that way, and people
Correct.
avoid it. Like I'm trying to redirect that avoidance because it's so special. Like your journey as a single mom, all the facets, components, things that you've experienced is so special and unique to you that other people can and are already being moved by it. So the more we lean into it as a community, like the more, I think there's nobody on this earth more like ready to like run the world than freaking single moms. Like we're presidential, okay? We really are. Like
Yes.
I mean, I don't hate to say it. I was gonna say I hate to say it, but
No,
it's
we're proud to say reclaim our power. That like
yeah,
you just even that part of it, like there's a reason that we've gone through the things that we've gone through, and when we give ourselves a license to share, and it's a process,
right.
it's a process, but that enables some other mom to some other single mother to be like, okay, wow, so either I can do it, or sometimes it's like, I'm not doing that,
Right,
because
right.
there's that side of our stories as
Right.
well.
Exactly. Exactly. And I love that. And I hope that what we've shared today like gives license for people who are experiencing grief, who are leaving traumatic situations, environments that hey, like, you've already done the hardest part, and how you manage that is up to you. How much time you need is up to you, and that you could still live fully, in the processes that go with like your experience. And so that's just something that I thought I personally took away from your story today. Like, I can't even imagine or compare what you may be going through, but it's developed an empathy in me and how I teach, how I look at things myself, how I'll teach things myself, how manage my life in a certain way that is mindful of what somebody else might be going through. And so I think that's what's powerful about conversations like this. And I appreciate you so, 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 so much
Thank you.
for taking the time today. How can the people stay in contact with you and follow Chozen Media and just your story? Because, girl, I want to see that book. The book needs to come out. I'm
It
going to hold
does,
you
doesn't it?
accountable on your time,
Yes.
but I think it would help. I think it would help and just heal, people. So how can we
Yeah.
stay in touch with you and what you're doing?
Well, first, again, just thank you for this space, because it's even as I allow myself to, as I'm processing, and when I do speak, that's, even as you said, it's healing for me as well, and it helps me to, oh, I never thought, or I haven't looked at that. So again, thank you for this. You can go to chosenmedia.co, and that you'll find all of our agency stuff, and a lot of the speaking, and even like the training with the AI courses and workshops. That's at createwithliberty.com. So createwithliberty.com. And then yes, as I get that book together, and it'll probably take, it might be video first, because that'll be
Yeah.
like that easy barrier to entry for me, since that's part of what I do. And maybe it'll be some like diary chronicle thing, and then turn that into a book. But yes, I am looking forward to sharing more as I'm on this journey.
Yes. Well, thank you so much again for spending time with us today. And we will see you guys on the next show.
Thanks. Bye.